Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And I hate talking about injuries. We had, 5 quarterbacks that went down last week. This week, before the play even happened, I guess it was right as it happened, Najee Harris went to take a step for the Chargers, former Steelers running back, and his Achilles, I think, is what the official diagnosis was. Probably just snapped because he went down hard. And credit to Herbert, he took the snap, turned around almost like he was going to do a handoff or fake a handoff, and then just kind of
right over him casually.
Yeah, just stepped over him, pretended like it didn't happen, and knew he had to get the ball out quick, right? Because even if he just faked the handoff, that's one less blocker you have in there. And if he was going on a route, then that's your safety valve.
Dart down the middle of the field.
Yeah, it was a weird play. And I wondered, dude, do you think these guys are getting injured because they're not stretching out right? Or just general overuse?
I honestly wonder. I'm not as much of a fan of the old static stretch at lines. But I do think, like, with what our high school team's doing is we've evolved more to a dynamic stretch where you're doing some lunges, you're doing some of the, like, side movements and hip pulls, and then you're adding it with a run.
Well, what about like a yoga type flow?
This was always the sticking point that I had, is I always remembered looking at our stretch line and where it was like the pull your heel up to your butt and stretch your quad stretch, right?
I do that.
How many linemen do you see just not even being able to stand on one foot?
I do that in my soccer practices, but I tell the kids, like, we do it kind of dynamic where I have them like roll their ankle out too while they're holding like their knee or whatever. So that way it's more of like a dynamic thing, but I tell them you need to work on your balance, dude. Because like when you're kicking the ball, you're only using one foot. The other one is your plant foot. You have to have the balance. Linemen, do they do that? It's not really a functional stretch, right?
Right. And so I was like, I'm not just standing there watching them stretch their quad, and like half the time they can't even reach their foot. So not a fan.
Too short of arms, like a T-Rex is what you're saying?
Yeah, alligator arm. I can't bend my leg back to my heel back to my butt. I can't grab my foot. Like, I look at the lineman like, I'm not wasting your time with that. We can get to that stretch. I mean, I don't know. I feel like with where sports medicine is, there should be more data and stuff that they're driving, because I'm sure all of the people in those fields are feeling the pressure of they don't want their butt suit off. So I wouldn't think that it was from a lack of analytics or preparation. I almost wonder if it's like a Bo Jackson type thing where they're so sport centric that their muscles just can't handle the load.
That's what I was wondering because it's been a more common thing now. Like, I feel like even a decade, 15 years ago, how many Achilles were we hearing about? Not that many. I mean, in the NBA alone, we're hearing a bunch.
Right.
And so it's the same guys. Yeah, they might be a little bit faster, but and the workload hasn't increased. I mean, maybe with the G League or whatever for the NBA, we know the football has increased, but they tried to get rid of a preseason. And we don't know. Like, it could be genetics too, where, like, yeah, you're saying his body's just not built to have that much muscle, because I'm sure he bulked up. I mean, I guess it depends on the player. Some players you see they stop playing, like Taylor Lewan, right? Michigan's old lineman, played for like Tennessee. He dropped a ton of weight. He does that podcast now or whatever. Is it Bussin' with the Boys? Is that the podcast or is that some other show? But like, he lost a ton of weight. Some other guys go in the opposite direction. They quit playing and then they balloon up. And so I wonder.
Those are typically skill guys.
Yeah, skill guys. But Hines Ward, right? You're like, what? What are you doing, dude?
Just throwing Hines Ward under the bus.
I bring him up all the time. Not impressed, dude. I see him in real life. Didn't strike me as a star, right? I'm just kidding, Hines. But I'll say this, dude. I don't know if, like, per se, like you're saying dynamic stretching, like the yoga I'm talking about, I know a lot of people think, well, you're just standing there stretching. But they have, and I'm going to sound like an idiot, I think like the most basic one is like sun stretch sanasa or something like that, where you're like standing up and then as part of the flow, you like stretch your arms up, go down all the way down to like the floor into some type of like lunge / plank. And you're really stretching like your entire body. And so if you do that sequence like 3 times, you're kind of getting used to standing up, stretching down, stretching your calves out and everything. Because I know as I get older, the calves are the ones that I feel like my body wants me to stretch out more. Of course, I've been running more, right? Increasing my distance, but I know you brought up the quads. I do know that if my quads feel tight, my body kind of just lets me know, like, you need to take a break and you need to just stretch out. Now, do I have the same range of motion I used to have? No. I used to be able to sit like all the way down, like doing like a double quad stretch on the ground, if that makes sense. If you could lean back, I probably can't really do that anymore. Could I get back to that? Maybe. But I don't know. Like the calf stretch, I honestly put a ton of time into making sure that my quads and my calves are stretched out. Just because if I don't do it, I can feel like just stiffness, even just walking around. Like where as I get older, my body's saying like, yo, you need to do this. And I wonder if some of the athletes, just because they're working so hard, I wonder if they're just fighting through their body telling them that, because they're like, well, I got to practice today. All right. It's just a little soreness or just a little tweak, where to me, it's like, I don't have to practice. I don't have to run. But my body's telling me like, it's a little tight. I need to stretch out more. And I wonder if it's just the age thing, because he's young still.
But I'm going to say with Najee specifically, he had the fireworks accident and missed a portion of time that I was questioning, is he even going to be able to start? So I think as far as like that quote acclimation period of, how, yes, he's one of the elite of the elite, but are you fully like prepped for that type of workload that I think is the risk factor for him of how he gets to that point of just blowing it, just getting out of the stance.
You could be right. You might not be ready. And I mean, we're just seeing it pop up more, that maybe it is just guys dogging it and they're not taking care of their bodies. Because like we know some athletes don't take care of their bodies if they're always on Twitter or TikTok posting vids and they're like out clubbing every night. It's not like they went out clubbing one time and brought like 30 different shirts and they're like, I'm going to save this and market myself as a clubber. Like, no, if you're doing that, you probably are out at the club, right? You see guys get robbed like because they're out there posting where they are so that people know they're not at home. And I mean, athletes, they were getting hit during the game, right? So that's like one of the things I always get alerts. It's like, hey, here's a security update. Make sure you don't tell people that you're not home, or like show them all the expensive stuff you have at your house. Like, okay, that makes sense. But then some athletes, dude, they don't get it. And you're right. Maybe they're not putting in the time. And some of these guys that it's happening to, I feel like they are on the younger side, where it could just be, well, I'm young, I never get hurt, let's fight through it. Because Najee, to my knowledge, he hasn't really been hurt, right? That's why the Chargers got him. He hadn't missed at all.
Right.
So this is his first major injury. If I'm remembering, I don't think he really missed time with the Steelers.
No, because he was 1,000-yard rusher every year. That was one of the head scratching things that I thought, well, I mean, maybe there was some kind of underlying medical thing that they didn't throw the contract out to him.
Yeah, it is a head scratcher. Maybe they knew he wasn't putting in the time. It's hard to say because, like, even people that are close to the program, they're not going to throw players under the bus. It just doesn't make good business sense, right? If you're the type of team that's throwing players under the bus and not helping them out, you're not going to get free agents, right? Think of the guy that's coaching the Jets now. He was the guy that the head coach, or I guess he's the defensive coach, right? Is it Wilkes? I think it's Wilkes, right? The old Panthers coach that cut Baker. And Baker, when he beat him this week, was like, yeah, I was focused on beating him. 100%. So these guys know, right? You don't want to be in the business of making horrible decisions and then trying to sign a free agent. We're like, hey, come play for me. And people, they remember. Right? I know people that don't eat at the right restaurant because they forget to put in a ketchup pack. Dude, right? So, like, these guys, if their livelihood depends on it and the franchise acts like a bunch of jerks, there could be a reason why some of these teams never win. I mean, it's not a surprise it's the same teams until there's a complete culture shift. Like the Lions last night beating the Ravens where they're just pounding the ball. I'm still waiting for the Lions to just mess it up. Because for so long, you're just conditioned for them to stink. Like, I'm like waiting for my man Hutch to get injured because he like had that freak leg break. And he wasn't even a guy to really get injured up until that point. So it's like, maybe he'll never get injured again, knock on wood. Like, I hope he doesn't. But I keep waiting for them to do something bad. And they're going for it on fourth down. And I'm thinking, oh, great. This is weird. And it wasn't even, at that point, I wanted a high-scoring shootout for fantasy because I have Lamar. I didn't really need the points at that time. I'll need him for like a tiebreaker. Right now, I'm leading the league, I think, in points scored. So I should have the tiebreaker. That's our tiebreaker. And we don't have any undefeated teams left, I don't think. So right now, I'm tied for first with like probably 5 other teams. I don't know how many are even in there. So tiebreaker is big. And so when the Lions gave their guy, Montgomery, he decided to score. I don't know if people watch the game. Like, that's a make or break touchdown run in terms of fantasy and gambling. Because if you're like a prop better and you're like, all right, I'm going to see Lamar needs like 3 touchdowns or whatever, that single-handed move where there's less than 2 minutes left, I think it was Montgomery, broke free on a run. Goff's telling him to go down. Right? If you go down, they needed 1 first down, I think, to run the Ravens out of timeouts. No, he ran for a touchdown, of course, because why not? And then Lamar drives down and throws another touchdown for me, so gets, 6 more points, whatever it is. And then they go for the onside kick. So it went, in a matter of no time, it went from the Lions having the game locked up to Montgomery deciding, I'm going to score. The Ravens scoring a touchdown, and then it coming down to an onside kick where you're like, what in the world? If you're a Lions fan, you have to be thinking, well, here's where things go wrong. And I'll ask you, Coach, they went for 2 after the first touchdown. What did you think of that move? I don't know if you saw it. But they're down 2 touchdowns. They score the first one. They know they need the onside kick, but they went for 2. Do you agree?
Not really. I don't know what the benefit would have been if you're down 2 scores.
See, I was thinking beforehand, before they even went for it, I thought, I wonder why coaches don't go for 2. You already need a miracle onside kick. So the odds of you winning are slim already, just because of the onside kicks part. But if you go for 2, you get 2 chances to get it now, and then you avoid overtime. I mean, if you get the first one, you win, as long as you kick the extra point. Now, if you missed it like they did, then they would need the second one to tie, but they didn't even get the onside kick, so it was moot.
And that was coach I worked for a long time ago said, who would you trust with the game on the line? Your 2,000-yard stud running back or a kicker who's half-time a soccer player? And like, you got to trust your best athlete. So I'm sure when you're looking at it, it's you feel confident that If you have an athlete that you can get a good matchup, why not go for it?
I know. What game was I watching in college? Was it Nebraska? I don't know, but every time the guy went to punt, the guy's like, this guy can punt with both legs. And I was thinking, well, waiting for him to have a disaster, right? It's only a matter of time before you're running and a guy gets in your face and you don't know which leg to kick with. So you're like just fumbling, right? Because you have to pick a side, really, and then try to get your steps down. But the kicker, I mean, there were so many block kicks this week. Packers, I was feeling good about the Packers. They got the humbling loss early because the Browns blocked a kick and then had enough time to take that field position and kick a game-winning field goal when they should have lost, right? I think it was tied, which you're facing the Browns. It should never have came down to that anyway. So I'm glad the Packers lost and didn't just pull it out because now maybe they can be a little bit more focused. The Jets, on the other hand, get the blocked field goal, get the touchdown, let them go all the way down and kick the game-winning field goal anyway. That's Baker. So that's embarrassing. They get 2 cracks at a game-winning field goal. I guess the first one wouldn't even have been a game-winning. I guess it would have been game-sealing because then they went down and won by like 1 point or something. But I thought, what was the other one? There was a blocked extra point. Was it the Chiefs game? Where I thought, oh my gosh, they just gave up the lead. Maybe it was the Eagles. No, yeah, because they went. Or no, I guess they didn't kick the field goal after. One of the games I was watching, they had a blocked extra point and they were up 1 or something, and I thought, is this team going to run it back? Because I was thinking they should have went for 2 to go up a field goal, right? And this is probably some like low-level college game that I won't remember. But they scored a touchdown, whatever, went to kick the extra point. They were already up by 1. They should have went for 2. The attempt got blocked, and the guy picked it up, and I thought, if he runs us back, the other team will win. Because if you can return a block kick just like you could intercept a 2-point conversion and kind of go. And that's why I'm surprised some teams also, they'll be in the same situation, and they're like, we're going to run our trickiest of trick 3-time reverse play. And I think, dude, this is a horrible idea because all it takes is one stray pitch for a guy to catch it and run the other way, and you lose the game. So all kind of weird special team stuff week 3. Not what you expect. So I don't know. Injuries, blocked kicks. Who else got hurt? Was there someone else? I'm trying to think. My running back, John, who do I have from the Vikings? Is it Jones? He was out. Didn't really matter. I bid up Blake Corum for $1. Remember I talked about that last week? I thought for sure you were going to bid me up as a jerk move. But I don't know if you tried to, and I just had to think. But I got him for $1 because I had to hedge my bets. All these running backs are going down. I can't risk with Kyron Williams, right? I can't risk having him as my standalone guy, and then him get injured, and I have to pay $30 or $70 for Blake. Because
James Conner was another one that got.
Oh, Conner was the one. I was looking up my app to see. He's out for the year too, right?
Yep.
Broken ankle, I think is what they said. Which I'm surprised some teams are like, hey, yeah, our guy got injured. It's really bad. We don't know what it is though. He might be back. And like, yeah, it's really, people were saying it's really bad and the most disgusting thing they saw, but he'll be back. Right? They got to go put a bionic leg in for him. Yeah, Jones is injured for me. And then I picked up Blake. He's only 12% on rosters, but I think people are probably hedging his bets. The other guy, I talked about Tucker Kraft, right? Last week, I said that might be a good stealth pick if you need a tight end. Gets injured at practice. And then because I missed the kickoff for the Bills game, I had Kincaid. He went off. And I thought, watch Kraft not play. But he did hobble around and get a couple points for me. But if someone needs another tight end, let's see if I can even pronounce this guy. For Tennessee, right? Okonkwo or something like that. He has been the number one target getter for Cam Ward. I don't know how long Cam Ward will be the starter. But the 1 year I went off, was it the Baker year for the Browns? One of them, the same type of thing happened where there was a tight end that was getting all the looks, and they wrote this article about how he was rooming. He had started to room with the quarterback. And I thought, this is great. Because this will be like a Travis Kelce situation where Mahomes, he always looks for Kelce when he is in trouble. And so now, Tennessee, that guy was available in our league. Right now, he's only on 15% of rosters on ESPN. I would make that move. I picked him up myself. Because I thought, yeah, you never know. Right? What other ones? Let's do a recap on my CJ Stroud. I was high on him. I'm sorry, guys, if you listen to me. He has been awful. I should have known. Ohio State quarterbacks, they never work out. Why would I think this one would be any different? Because he had that one good year. Similar to Burrow, though, right? One good year. I mean, Burrow made it to the Super Bowl. After that, injured, not doing anything. Same with Stroud. Not doing anything. Barely scoring. Which is weird because he has Collins, and Collins has been putting up points. He had another touchdown, I think, last week. Insane. The biggest play, Adunze, he's probably pretty much picked up across the league because he's been on fire. Same thing. Him and Williams rooming together, right? They're best buds. Of course, he's going to look for him when he needs the ball to go to someone. That's what I look for in my team. So those are my fantasy updates for people that are listening.
I just call around like, hey, who you rooming with?
Yeah, call around. DM them. Say, yo, who you like best? Who you like best out there? Because some of the guys, you don't know where they're going to go with it. I haven't found a kicker. I tried to pick up McManus from the Packers thinking that might work out. And then they had that awful game against the Browns. So I started second guessing myself. Well, like I said, my team's been scoring off the hook. I have to play Pollard. So I have too many Tennessee guys is what I'm realizing here. Two is too many. If a team stinks, dude, you should not have more than one player from their team. That's how I know when someone sends me, hey, what do you think of my team? And it has like 4 Cowboys on it. And I'm like, delete that team. I don't care what's going on. I've watched Cowboys. They stink. Horrible. Dak, awful. They tried to take him out, put my man Milton. I'm like, first off, I forgot Milton was even in the league. He goes down. He throws 3 good passes in a row. And I'm thinking, could he be good? No. Rockets it right to the defender in the end zone. I'm like, all right. That's what the guy I'm remembering. Good for a couple passes. Then he makes that bonehead mistake, and you're like, what are you doing? Just take it easy, Joe. You got him into field goal range. Or not. Yeah, field goal. Well, they needed touchdowns, but the game was already over. But he had his guy open. He just overthrew it right to the defender. And then he was like hitting himself, and I thought, never a good look. Mess up and you start yelling at yourself. That's more of a show. Do you agree? That's not like sincere.
Yeah.
Any NFL stuff stand out to you this week?
Well, just looking across our fantasy league, it was like there weren't as many higher scores as the previous, which with the increase of injuries, I'm not surprised by that. I felt a little bit better when I was going through. I was like, well, the guy who played had one of the top scores of the week. So I was like, well, had I played just about anyone else, I might have been in better shape.
I play you this week. That'll be when my team doesn't show up. Like week 1. Hopefully we don't. I was looking to see on my phone if I had any buys. That would be my disaster, but I don't think I do yet. I don't know when they start.
Tennessee's bye week will be during the championship. He'll be like, oh, my whole team's out.
They won't be playing anyway. They'd be sent home early. They say, guys, we just canceled the rest of your games. You're not on TV. You're not doing anything. Just embarrassing. Start doing a lottery. Maybe that's what, well, I guess that is kind of like the playoffs. I was saying maybe they should just do that where they do like a survival thing where they have a flex week. Instead of adding another week to the season, you just slowly eliminate like 4 teams every week. You're like, sorry guys, you're done. You didn't make it like a I don't know what some type of survivor pool where like your team's has no wins and you're like, we're just cutting it early. We're calling it, boys. Go home.
No, do it the opposite. Make them stay and play longer. Oh, you got to practice another week. You got to practice another week because you need to get better.
Well, I wondered when they talked about doing that for the Big Ten conference in college, where the Big Ten said like, hey, we should do a showcase weekend. And I hear they keep bringing that back up. And I've heard anywhere from like 4 to 8 teams. When during COVID, it was supposed to be every team. And I was thinking that's a good way to sneak in extra week of practice for your crap team. Where before you didn't make a bowl game, you didn't get the extra weeks of practice or whatever. But if you just have your conference and say, well, it's part of our conference agreement, what are we supposed to do? Like they need the practice. It's not like they get an extra couple weeks though. It would just be the one. But in the NFL, making 2 teams play in like a toilet bowl, do you think people would watch that?
Probably not.
I don't even want to watch half the games that are on to begin with. Like when they put on the random game or like even the Sunday night game where it's like, all right, who's playing? Do I care?
But every year we watch the Pro Bowl and we're like, oh crap, that's on.
Yeah, I forget. Horrible decision. I would rather have them just have the 2 crappier teams play one more week after the Super Bowl, right? They play and the winner gets the first round draft pick. Imagine, right? The intensity in that game, especially if you know like who the quarterback's going to be or whatever the first round pick is. And you're like, all right, guys, we got to win. We got to win. We just have the draft bowl after the Super Bowl where it's like kind of like a Pro Bowl, but it's just the 2 crappiest teams. Heck, they could do it on top of the Pro Bowl, right? Where you have 2 bottom feeders play for the number 1 pick. And then you have the Pro Bowl skills competition. So like all your studs are hanging out at the game and they have the game in like a weird location. Actually, they should do it wherever the draft's going to be, right? So it's going to be at Pittsburgh next year. You're playing like a game in the middle of winter. 2 bottom feeders, whoever they end up being this year.
Yeah, because that would definitely be good for health and safety.
Be good for TV, though. I mean, what would you rather do? Watch Pro Bowl where guys are just like hanging out at the beach? You know you're not going to be there. Or would you rather watch a game in Pittsburgh where they hype up the draft and you get to watch like the Saints playing the Dolphins or something for the first round draft pick, number 1 draft pick?
Yeah, and then your starting running back like blows their knee out, and then they can't play next year either. Dude, that's exactly what the owners want.
Dude, do you think that they couldn't blow their knee out doing a skills competition? And what player needs a whole year to recover? Really?
Some might.
I mean, the Achilles, right? You could just do that hanging out. You could get hit with the firework in the eye. You know you don't know what's gonna happen in your day to day, Matt. You gotta get hurt going out of bed.
Because I wear my safety lenses.
Yeah, you should do that. You should donate some safety lenses to your favorite team just in case. Next 4th of July, like, hey guys, I'm mailing these out. Make sure you get them, wear them. Don't blow your eye out. Don't blow your hand either. Give them like a hot gloves or something. Fireman suit. Go ham, boys. Go ham. Anything else you want to talk about for the NFL?
No.
All right, let's get into college stuff. I honestly don't really have too much. The big news, Mike Gundy fired. And honestly, I liked Mike Gundy. Some things he does, and like even some other coaches, like I don't like bringing politics in to like my sports. I'd like to have it separate. I know that's like almost impossible with all the agenda crap they push, but he's one of the ones that was like outspoken against NIL too. And I'm really against that because I was a former athlete and I know some of the things that they talk about where it's like, they're paying your salary, you're doing this. And I've had people complain like, hey, I'm an X major. I have to do internships and I don't get paid. Why do athletes have to get paid? They should go back to being no pay. And I've done both. I've had internships. I mean, I interned at a hospital when I was in college, played sports. I did clubs, whatever. I did work study. I did everything, right? And the number one time killer is by far sports. There's no competition, right? I don't care what program you're in. If you're interning for free, you are not watching what you eat. You're not waking up and randomly running for like 5 miles in the morning when it's snowing. You're not doing that, right? Like, unless you're interning for like a fitness like club gym thing, you're not doing it. You're also not traveling around, having coaches check in, having tutors randomly come up and try to do like help with your work and be like, oh, gotta stay on top of this, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you do some extra work, and forcing you to do stuff you don't want to do out of your time. Like, there's just so many things that these guys are doing. I've been there. They need to be paid. I'm 100% on board. Anyone that's against it, it just annoys me. And I'm glad that coaches that are against it, like Saban and now Gundy, that's the one thing that turned me on them. Politics, whatever, I can overlook that stuff. But like, if you're out there just undermining your own team, Dabo's the other one. Oh, we're not going to transfer portal. Oh, you don't need as much money as whatever. Dude, get bent. Who cares? That's why your team sucks. And I'm glad that it's happening to you, right? All his sanctimonious stuff like, well, if you just valued what we're bringing here, or he's even worse than politics, he's bringing religion into it. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? I don't care. Pay the players. They're putting in tons of time. Are you donating your salary? I mean, everyone knows the negatives of Brian Kelly. He was donating some of his salary to NIL. Is it a surprise that LSU is good? How many guys didn't donate NIL? Hey, Dabo, how many family relatives did you hire? Right? I mean, down here they call Clemson like staff, the Nepo staff, right? That's not a surprise, dude. Not a surprise. So these guys are getting paid millions of dollars, speaking out against transfer portal, speaking out against getting paid. I hope your team sucks. I hope your team sucks, dude. There's no way for me to actively cheer for your team if you're against the best interest of the players. And I get the argument all the time. And I know it's always from people that haven't played or haven't done even activities, right? You're doing like music club. You should get paid if you're able to draw in a crowd and like sell tickets or whatever. I mean, I was on that side of it too. These guys are doing the same exact thing. People are going to watch the game. Someone said the argument like before, well, if you take off like Duke basketball and you just put 5 random dudes out there playing for Duke, people are still going to watch. They're not going to watch if they're not good, right? So at some point, it comes down to the players, and we see it all the time with teams that suck or go through the thing, and people just stop watching them on TV. Look at Nebraska. I mean, they have great fans from what I've interacted with, right? I haven't been there. I watched them beat us in the big house, right? When I had student tickets. So I interacted with Nebraska fans. Very nice. I think everyone agrees one of the nicest fan bases, but Nebraska hasn't been good for 30 years. There's no one watching them on TV. If the Big Ten cut them, I don't even know if anyone would notice, right? People still go to see them in person. And I know they're trying to get like their NIL stuff. Great. But you can't tell me that people are just going to keep watching Nebraska without the players. Because we've already seen it happen. People aren't watching them. They're not becoming a draw. Yeah, they have their sellouts or whatever. But realistically, what else? They don't have a pro team in Nebraska. What are they up against? It's not like they have the highest like seating that they're selling out like some crazy number. So pay the players, the guys. Gundy, if Dabo's next, I'll just laugh because he's one of the ones where right now he has no idea what's going on and his team looks awful. Gundy calling out Oregon about getting paid and then it's not even having an answer. It's just not even having your team prepared. Like the players clearly do not want to play for him. And I don't even think it's a money thing. At some point, you just become a guy complaining when you should be focusing on your team. Because the number one guy, Signetti, right, that I think of, Indiana's not paying for top talent. You got to be joking yourself if you think that they are. And they just put a whooping on Illinois that people are overlooking. Illinois beats, was it South Carolina last year in a bowl game? They won 10 games. They had a majority of their team coming back. Same exact situation as sort of like a Penn State. Did they have the top talent? No, but sometimes that doesn't matter if you have a ton of upperclassmen like Illinois did. Indiana had no business beating the crap out of them by 60 points or whatever that score was. That's a program shifter. Right? Anyone that has Indiana on their schedule right now, they're circling that game. And there's no reason Mike Gundy couldn't have did the same thing at Oklahoma State. But at some point, you got to make a change because he could be their best coach of all time. You hope it doesn't end like that. You hope the guy walks away or does his thing. Or I honestly think we're seeing the same thing at Clemson. Dabo's fighting against NIL, fighting against the transfer portal. Their team had everyone coming back. They were picked to win the national championship. I know at least, 5 different guys in national media that I had seen pick Clemson to win the national championship this year. They look like idiots. So
I think bringing up the portal is interesting because a lot of the traditional media points said it's not a sustainable model of going in and getting guys out of the portal, and you're not getting good character guys in the portal, and blah 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 blah. But there's all these like talk downs as to how the portal is going to ruin college football. How many losses do you think the top 7 teams that use the portal the most have right now?
I don't know. Do you
0.
know?
Yes. 0.
But it could backfire, right? Because last year Florida State had a ton, and their guys didn't mesh, and they went 2-10.
Oh, it's 100% a gamble. I mean, also just sitting in the same cover 2 shell and not changing anything will get your ass fired too. But when you look at the top 7 that of the portal classes, LSU, Texas Tech, Miami, Ole Miss, Oregon, Florida State, and Missouri. They're all undefeated right now, all heavy hitters in the portal. So I think that when you look at a school like Nebraska, do they want to invest in the portal? You know, Miami has been butt cheeks recently. Now they're back in the running of being competitive. Why? Because their NIL is through the roof, and they're throwing all kinds of money and bringing people in. I think, you know, it's one of those, you have to evolve with the times, and whether you like it or you hate it, that's what the landscape is. You know, Saban was really adamant against paying players in the NIL, and what did he do? Now he's making money on ESPN. There's a talking point. There's a talking head. So, I mean, Gundy, for as much of a personality as he has, I'm sure he will wind up on one of those shows and will continue his career elsewhere.
That's where I said the same thing. Some of these programs, they just do a better job of marketing. And a lot of people put out A&M as the example of saying, see, paying players doesn't work. They're the one anomaly, right? Where they were just paying for the top 5, 8, 5-star dudes. That's not how you build a team, right? You have to have the same type of mix where you're sprinkling in guys like 5-star dudes that you used to never get. Like Michigan never got the number 1 QB. They bring him in. Miami wasn't getting the top transfer QB until they did it 2 years in a row, right?
But, you know, like I look at my case example in a lot of this is Florida State, because pre-NIL, what was the big selling point for a lot of those programs?
Free crab legs.
It was the stadium. It was the environment. It was the schools that were developing, like the barbershop and the clubhouse. And like, what are the extra incentives in the locker rooms and things like that? And Jimbo Fisher had made a big push. It was like, we don't have an indoor practice facility. We need one. We need this. And when you're looking at schools that are competing, like when you look, it's not a surprise that Oregon is where they are right now because they've thrown so much money into their athletics. And, going from the ground up of having the brand, and then as NIL's introduced, they're on the forefront of being willing to go get players. I think it goes hand in hand. And now this next step is, what's that collective look like? And the teams that are staying ahead of the curve are figuring out, how do you bring in the right guys? If your receivers can't catch a pass, how do you bring in the right talent? So that I think that blue chip factor, or that ratio, is still relevant, but I think you can close that gap a lot faster because now you can go to the portal and say, this guy has Division I experience. He has film that he can play at this level. Maybe the initial rankings weren't there, but he's going to fit our scheme and what we want to do, and it can pay dividends for you down the road.
And I said it all along, like, you can look at when NIL started and the transfer portal, and dudes that got in on that early, like Harbaugh, they reap those rewards, right? How many guys had transferred into Michigan that made a huge impact on the national championship team? Josh Wallace came from UMass, right? In the past, that never would have happened, right? Gets in, he makes the game-saving tackle in overtime against Alabama. I think Stewart blew up one of those plays, maybe the last one, the Milrow run. He's a transfer in. And once you have that pipeline started, then you're able to get guys. Like this year, if you watch the Nebraska game, Barnum, the transfer from Maryland to Michigan, is probably one of the best, if not the best, D-end blitz linebacker, whatever position he even plays, in the country. The dude's a beast. He's unblockable. If Maryland had any NIL, they probably could have kept him, right? I don't think guys traditionally go from an in-conference foe transfer right up to Michigan, but credit to him, it worked out. He's awesome. If he's not a first-round pick, I would be highly surprised if he could play his way into the top 10 easily, because they could not block him. That Raiola guy that they hype up as like Patrick Mahomes light, he was running for his life the entire game. And that's all transfer stuff.
Have you watched him at all?
Who?
That Mahomes guy, wannabe.
I've seen him play. I was kind of impressed with how he passed against Michigan. I'm not going to lie. But he didn't have the escapability. And I don't know if that's something that you can learn. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's kind of an intrinsic. You either have it or you don't. Because I think it's funny that like you literally patent and copy everything, and then have the ball like, I'm my own person. Like, you're clearly copying Mahomes. Like, just lean into it.
Well, see, I don't know if you watched the Nebraska-Michigan game. He kept him in the game. I'm not going to lie. There were a couple of drives where he was able to get away and make some plays, but there were also a couple of drives where he got stepped on by his own lineman. And yeah, their lineman was getting blown up because Michigan's D-line is pretty good. But it wasn't like a crazy blitz where he didn't see it coming. It was almost like he was a half step too slow. And if you're a half step too slow in college, you're like 3 steps too slow in the NFL, right? There's not like he'll get quicker. Like you just don't have it. And I don't know if his arm is enough to really put him into that. He's probably like a round 5er, 6er. It might work out. I don't know. But I didn't see enough where it was like, all right, this guy's insane. Because the other guy, Mateer, who broke his hand, which we knew, if you watch the Michigan-Oklahoma game, he basically won the game himself, running around like a crazy man. You knew that wasn't going to be sustainable. Credit to him, I think he played through the Auburn game with the broken hand, which kept it closer than what it should have been, right? And I guess the refs kind of helped Oklahoma out a little bit. I didn't catch it all. But that could swing the entire SEC, because Oklahoma looked like they might be the best SEC team. It looked like, to me, and honestly looked like an Oklahoma-Georgia SEC championship game. With him going down, I think they're going to try to do surgery and have him back in a month. We'll see. I guess it's not throwing hand, right? If you played through the game, I'm thinking it's not throwing hand.
Yeah.
So I don't know when he'll be back, and if they drop a couple games, I mean, they're undefeated right now, I believe, still. So if he can get back, you never want to see a guy get injured. But if he's like the premier guy in the conference, I mean, honestly, he looked like the best quarterback in the SEC by far. That I'm kind of sad to see him go down, because I was hoping, it's not like Oklahoma's an upstart team either, right? They're pretty much a blue blood. And so having them there being good again kind of helps the SEC. I wonder if the SEC is kind of nervous, though. Because if you're looking around and 3 of your top teams are, heck, 4, if you count A&M, if you believe that Notre Dame wins legit, they would have had Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and A&M alive fighting for the SEC championship. All former Big 12 schools, right? The Big Ten, maybe you have Oregon competing. Maybe Washington. I think that Ohio State game this week is going to be a big tell. Washington, I was surprised they let Washington State hang around more than they did. But their 3 core guys reminds me of that Penix mold, where they have a great wide receiver, they have a great quarterback, and they have a great running back. People forget that that running back got banged up. I don't know if it happened in the Michigan game, the national championship game, or a little bit before that, but their running back got banged up in the championship game, so he wasn't at full speed. That kind of took away some of their offensive firepower. I mean, he was running against a great Michigan defense, so you can't throw that out either. But they're doing the same mold that they had when they made their championship run. Could Washington upset Ohio State this week? 100%. Because I think Arch Manning was that bad against them that if they have an accurate quarterback going against their defense, we'll see how good they are. Because if that's the thing that's hurt them in the past with Michigan, they've struggled against a balanced attack. For whatever reason, Penn State turtles up when they play Ohio State. Still plays them close, but they're not still doing their, hey, we're going to throw the ball deep. We're going to keep pounding them. They kind of do like their weird, let's just try to get the ball into the flat, throw a bunch of screens and bubble passes, see what happens. And then nothing happens, right? Because Ohio State's faster than Penn State. So it's almost like the dumbest strategy I've ever seen in my life, where maybe Washington doesn't do that. I don't know. That'll be a game to watch, because if there's going to be a shift, Ohio State has to start losing some other games. Can't just lose to Michigan and then roll through the rest of the Big Ten with like a random game against Oregon dropped. That's not going to help Penn State or some of these other teams like Indiana step up. I don't even know if Indiana plays Ohio State. I don't even think Michigan plays Indiana. I think Indiana has a chance where if they beat Oregon and Penn State, I think that's the only top 2 teams they play. Or heck, if they split those, they're probably in the playoffs. The way they beat Illinois. I don't see them losing like many games with Cignetti there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think even a 2-loss Indiana probably gets in, depending on how Illinois ends up. They had 2 losses last year and they got in. I don't even know if they had any signature wins. No, they didn't. Because I think their biggest win was Michigan, and at that point, Michigan had, 7 wins before the bowl game? I don't even think. Yeah, so they weren't even like a big win either. So, who knows? Crazy time. The ACC decided to join hands with the SEC. They bent the knee to the Big Ten too and announced they're doing the same thing the SEC did, where they're doing a 9-game schedule, but they're forcing 10 games where they want to play one other Power 5, whatever, Power 4. And their reasoning is that they have one odd team that can only play 8 conference games. So to keep it fair, they're doing a 9+1 and then an 8+2. But I don't think that extra game counts in the tiebreaker. So I don't know what the tiebreaker is going to be if a team goes 7-1 and then two other teams go 8-1. Does a team that just played one less game not get in to the championship game? Does it go by pure win percentage? Well, I guess we'll find out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the eight team conference, like that's got to be like a Florida State or someone that has traditional rivals outside of the ACC, I would think.
Well, that's one of those.
But like, I don't know. What do you think?
I've looked at the scheduling in the past, and it's like Florida State has always scheduled tougher opponents in the early going. I mean, they have had Alabama in years past. They've had LSU. They've had Ole Miss. Like, they've played these higher profile games early in the year. State law in Florida, they're playing Florida at the end of the year. So like they're getting some of those bigger rivals. You know, I think it's locking them into your conference slate, and I think it's zeroing in on some of the, maybe more of what the criteria for trying to plead your case to get into the playoffs. So you can say, like, one of the things that they knocked people for over the years was, oh, well, you haven't played enough tougher non-conference, but they're not going to hold. You know, like maybe that's the way that they're boxing out the schools that are independent, like Notre Dame. So you say, well, we have our conference slate, and you're scheduling all these FCS teams. You know, maybe that tries to box them into joining a conference.
That's what I was going to bring up, because I think the Florida State model was my exact example for that. I think a lot of people are saying like, well, look out, Stanford, you're getting the short end of the stick. You're only getting 8 conference games, where in my mind, they're going to rotate through like their powers to kind of protect them, where it's going to be Florida State gets 8 games because they have Florida, and then their 10th game is going to be Notre Dame. And then the next year, it'll probably be Clemson playing South Carolina and then getting Notre Dame. And if you're not a good team, I mean, Clemson, we will see how Dabo reacts, right? But the other teams, if you're not going to be good and competing, because Miami could be the same thing, play Florida, also play Notre Dame, that's your 10 games. We don't really want you playing an 11th game because we want you to take down Notre Dame. Because I think ACC realizes that they need to have their top teams play Notre Dame. Because even if Notre Dame loses a crappy game, like to Marshall or Northern Illinois or someone, the committee's going to ignore that completely and put them in the playoff. It directly helps the ACC, though, if, like this year, Notre Dame already has 2 losses or whatever. If the ACC is the team that's knocking them out, then it boosts the ACC, where you can go to the same argument they had when they kept Florida State out a couple years ago. Can't leave Texas out. They beat Alabama, bro. Where the ACC is probably thinking in their meetings, can't leave Florida State out to put Notre Dame in because they beat Notre Dame. So I think there's going to be a little bit of gamesmanship with this new ACC agreement, where they're thinking we can kind of help our top teams, because we know that if Florida State just has an ACC schedule, and even if they go undefeated in the past, they've been left out of the playoffs. We want them to have the flexibility of having Florida and Notre Dame and not being boxed out, but also not giving up the 2 warm-up games that they probably need, because you've seen Michigan have the 3 warm-up games, win the national championship. Ohio State has 3 easy games, wins the national championship, even though they lost in the regular season. Penn State this year, 3 easy games. Are they going to be able to ramp up and win the national championship? Because you just have one less tear game on your body. I mean, we've talked about injuries for the last couple weeks now for the NFL. Same thing for college. Guys are getting injured, and you hate to see it. I brought up Mateer breaking his hand, out for a few weeks. At this point, they're probably thinking, just get to the playoffs. Get him healthy. If they can go undefeated with the backup while he's out, because I don't think the schedule's as daunting as when he's supposed to be back.
You're canceled. You're not allowed to make playoffs now.
He's coming back, dude. They did the reverse. Florida State.
Your quarterback gets hurt. You're dead.
You got to get injured early, though. Come back or have your quarterback like start to show up against like Sam Houston or whatever. Who did Texas play? Where Arch gets in the face of their guys and starts showing how tough he is. I don't know. Like, is that warranted? Because I don't see it.
That sounds like the script of The Replacements, where Keanu Reeves wins all those games, and then the other guy comes back. It's like, no, this is my team.
Yeah, my team. I'm going to win it all. Because you talk about Miami, dude. You got to be careful. Miami's getting first place votes. People think they're number one. When's the last time that's happened?
Florida State scored 62 points in fella spot. That poll is such a bunch of bullshit.
Hey, I don't know. Michigan went up too. I have to agree with it. We're getting up there. There's 3 one-loss SEC teams ahead of us, though. That's kind of weird. Notre Dame, still 1-2, still ranked. Got that first win, though. They're on the right path, Matt, to getting back in the playoffs. I don't know. We'll see. Auburn lost. They're receiving votes still.
Well, Florida State's out of the playoffs now.
Why?
Castellanos got hurt.
They have time to get back in, dude. They can play Miami in what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, but they got a really tough slate because they're playing Virginia this week on Friday. You know, it's like who's doing the scheduling for the ACC? They're like trying to make it a murderer's row.
Why don't they just say no? Remember that?
Because I think they tried to do that and went to court over it. Because they're putting Virginia has one of the top ranked offenses in the country. So it's like, that's nice. On a short week, play them and then turn back around and play the night game with Miami.
Well, see, that's the crazy thing. The Big Ten tried to mandate everyone play a Friday game. And then Michigan said, no, we're not doing that. And they were like, all right. And then Ohio State said, wait, if they're not doing it, we're not doing it. And the Big Ten was like, okay. And then Penn State did the same thing. And then Michigan State tried it, and they said, all right, buddy, we hit our limit. You got to play Friday night games. and I think Michigan State has played more Friday night games than anybody, which cracks me up because they're like, that's your peak. People want to see you on Friday. It might not show in the ratings, but come on, you can be the only game in town. You can be playing Rutgers, playing whatever. And then Michigan State got shoved into a USC game at 11 p.m. kickoff Eastern on Fox. Did you see that last week? 11 p.m. on main Fox, they played USC. I mean, they lost because that's like what? Trying to stay up till 2 a.m. after flying all the way out there? I haven't heard if Jonathan Smith interviewed like my intel had told me. So we'll wait and see. Maybe not. I mean, there's been more firings and openings than what I expected. Luke Fickell still didn't get fired yet. They lost to Maryland. So looked pretty bad. I think Edwards is supposed to be back. That's kind of the excuse they're giving. I think he's supposed to be back in time for the Michigan-Wisconsin game in 2 weeks. I think Michigan has a bye, and then Wisconsin game's the next week. So it's the same week as the Florida State-Miami game. That game could be the only game that saves Fickell's job, right? You got to have a signature win. If you don't have a signature win, what are you doing? Like Indiana just crushed Illinois. How they're not ahead of Texas at 3-1 when Texas has looked like garbage, I don't know. Right? Color me shocked. Someone's still voting Oklahoma number 1 too. They must really like Michigan. They're like, we are holding out hope. We want Oklahoma to be number 1. I wish you would tell me who. I guess they do for the AP. I could probably look it up and see. Oregon has one. Miami has a couple. Penn State's still getting votes. Penn State hasn't looked good, though. I'm not wavering yet on my pick, but they're playing Oregon this week. Biggest game on Penn State's schedule other than Ohio State. It's at home. And they get Indiana at home. They have to win, in my mind, they have to win one of the 3, at least, right? And not lose any other game. I think they should win 2 of the 3 if they're contenders. Do you think one of those 2 is going to be Oregon?
I want to say with the way that they're playing in the early part of the year, I have a hard time saying they're not.
I mean, Oregon's looked good. They got Gundy fired, right? That really happened.
True.
And that's better than any competition. I don't care how bad Oklahoma State is. That's better than anything Penn State has played. And Oregon won the Big Ten. They beat them last year. Remember, people think that like Oregon just like crapped the bed. They won the Big Ten. They beat Ohio State in the regular season. I think the bye week ate them up in the playoffs. I also wonder like if they win the Big Ten again and get that bye week, if we'll see adjustments by the coaching staff this year and Oregon will play better. That should be the natural progression, right? Because you see a lot of teams make the playoffs for the first time and they struggle with it. When teams that have been in there for a while, their guys kind of know what to expect and they're a little bit better. So, can Oregon do it? Oregon's schedule is honestly laughably easy. They play Penn State, then they have Indiana, and that's it. Rutgers, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, USC, and Washington. We don't know how good USC and Washington are. I guess we'll find out if Washington beats Ohio State. They don't play Michigan. They don't play Ohio State. This is pretty much it for them. If they beat Penn State, they could lose to Indiana and still be in the Big Ten championship game? Probably. Unless Ohio State wins out, and then, of course, Indiana would win out. I think you have a better chance of seeing Indiana drop one, though, just because of the talent. The blue chip ratio is not there. Cignetti's doing an awesome job. The rumors are flying that this could be his last year at Indiana, right? I mean, I talked to some Nebraska fans that are hoping they can just fire Roll and bring in Cignetti and have him coach Raiola. I think he has another year or two left. I think it's only a sophomore, so he should at least have one more year, right? But I think Cignetti was the type of guy, he'd bring his own guys with him and his entire coaching staff, right? He knows what works. And he's older, too. But is Nebraska even a step up over Indiana? If I were him, I wouldn't do it. Would you?
I'm from the school that I think if you're at a place where you're able to have success, you got to be careful of what you're getting yourself into. And you look at people like Rich Rod that are ping ponging, or Todd Graham, with that experiment of jumping from one to the next, trying to game the system. I think it comes back to bite you. Being able to stay in a place and develop roots, I think there is a room for that and a place for that. And I think it's better for you long term to have, once you have that type of program and that success, to continue to building and knowing that you have that level of support. Now, I think it changes if you feel like from the administration you're not getting the level of the administrative support to do the things you want to do. I think at that point it's changes need made.
And that's the one thing you brought up, coach hopping. I don't even know if we talked about this on the show or if I was talking to somebody off the show, but Matt Campbell, right? He had been linked to a couple high profile jobs, possibly like if Michigan didn't hire from within, they might consider him. And one of the interviews pre-show, I think it might have been on the Fox, whatever, Big Noon, is that what that's called? Where Urban Meyer was saying that he met with Campbell and Campbell had an offer for a team that was close to winning a national championship. And I was thinking, like, what team is he talking about? And I brought it up to one of my sources, and he said, that's clearly Washington, dude. Right? When last year, or 2 years ago now, whenever Washington lost the national championship, before they hired Jed Fish, which makes sense because I wasn't even thinking of them, they must have called and offered Campbell the job, is what I've heard. And he turned it down because, to me, when I hear like a national championship competing program, I'm thinking one of the top dogs. And like, I know Alabama didn't call them, right? So, like, who else would it have been? I mean, Michigan didn't call anybody. Ohio State hasn't hired. In my mind, Georgia didn't interview anybody. What other program has been kind of close? Like Oklahoma, they hired Wright Venables. Like, they wanted to bring him in. That was pretty clear cut. But Washington would have made sense. And to me, that's not a move that you make. Same with like going to Nebraska. I know Washington has been close, but if you're Campbell, I've been low on Iowa State. Iowa State's your best chance at getting in the playoffs. You have as good a chance at winning in the playoffs with Iowa State, to me, that you do with Washington. No offense to Washington right now, but you're at a disadvantage in the Big Ten, money-wise, brand-wise, and location-wise. Luckily, Oregon has enough NIL to offset their location, but they're kind of an outlier too. That's why they haven't actually won a national championship. Yeah, they can compete, but their location isn't the best. And I bring that up because my last topic is Texas Tech. I don't hear a lot of people talking about Texas Tech. I've seen them ranked really low on a couple of people's like power rankings, and they went all in on NIL. Heck, they bought almost a national championship in softball, right? They went out and got the best pitcher, and they were runners up, I believe. And so now they have a team of talent they're bringing in to the Big 12. They might be the most talented team in the Big 12. Yeah, you're fighting big money donors from BYU and TCU, right? So I don't want to discredit them. And you're fighting Matt Campbell's Iowa State that he's built up over time. Where, to me, those are the four teams this year. Kansas possibly being a wild card. I know they already lost. I saw them kill West Virginia. The other teams, I just don't think. UCF's still undefeated and Houston's undefeated. I don't think they have the talent to compete. I guess Arizona's still undefeated too. And I agree. I don't think they have the top to bottom talent to compete that these other four schools do. And so that's a conference to watch. And it's also going to help the ACC because as long as Florida State, even with the injured quarterback, I know you joke about them getting left out last time, in the expanded playoffs, they're going to 100% put Florida State in. My only worry is that Georgia Tech, they have an Oregon-type schedule, dude, where they might not drop another ACC game. Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Duke, these are all bottom feeders, man. Syracuse, all right, that one might be tough. NC State, Boston College, and Pitt. Their two toughest games are Syracuse and Pitt. And after that Clemson tiebreaker, it might not even matter. You might have an undefeated Georgia Tech in the ACC championship playing the winner of Miami, Florida State. So if you're an ACC fan, I would keep an eye on that game. That's going to be your ACC championship. I would bet on it right now. I know Louisville's undefeated. I don't know if they play the other ones. And that's the problem with like this round robin. They play Miami. They don't play Florida State. We could see some weird championship games and then some weird discussions by the committee. Because if you have some ACC teams that didn't make the championship game with one loss or maybe two losses up against a two-loss Notre Dame, who gets in? You know it's Notre Dame. How mad is that going to make the ACC, right? These are things that we're starting to get into, but there's not a lot of undefeated teams left. So this could be one of the years where we get some chaos. And that's what I'm hoping for. Any other college stuff you want to talk about?
Yeah, we talked about schools trying to get involved in that arms race of being competitive on a bigger level. I mentioned Missouri. As I was flipping through some of the games, I realized they're just in the middle of casual stadium renovations. Like, while the game's going on, you can see all the heavy machinery there and like the wall tore down. Like, you could have found a better time to work on some of that stuff. Like, I don't know, outside of football season.
During the game, I saw the tractors moving.
Yeah, you see, like, there's like, no, we're just going to work on this now.
But that's
Never
big
comes to our
time.
game.
You can't wait around in the SEC, dude. That's why it means more. Or whatever they say, right?
So clearly it does.
I'm just surprised that in a couple of predictions I've seen, a couple of them didn't even have the SEC having a bye. Like, they don't think their top team this year is good enough to jump like the Ohio State, Oregon, or maybe it was Ohio State and Penn State. They think that those two teams are going to be ranked ahead of the SEC along with Miami and whatever other conference winner is out there. Texas Tech, Iowa State. Like, I don't know. Miami, maybe Florida State. Yeah, like, you're going to have some conferences right now that could have teams that are just ahead of where the SEC is. Does that mean they're not going to win the national championship? Not necessarily. We don't know how some of these teams are going to fare, but I think we might have another exciting year because you just don't know. And with NIL, people are against it. It's really spreading the talent out to where now teams like Miami has a legit chance, and they haven't had a legit chance in 20 years. I think you can agree with me on that. Right?
Yeah.
And Oregon's been close, but it always seemed like they just don't have the talent. They could win it this year, and no one would even bat an eye. So, big games. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, that's about it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.